Group Therapy for Beginners.
Why do you say that the greatest benefit for addicts of all kinds is in group therapy?
Because, in ideal circumstances, they're supported and challenged by each other. They learn from each other.
Why can't they learn from a doctor or from a counsellor in a one-to-one session?
They can, but it won't give them the full benefit of group work.
Why not?
Because any addict ought to be able to outwit any individual other than another addict.
How do you mean?
I used to be able to change sides in the middle of a discussion, and my wife wouldn't even notice.
What did that achieve?
It meant that I could go on proving that black is white and get away with behaviour that should have been confronted.
Why did you do that?
Because that's what addicts do. It's like asking someone with appendicitis why he or she is in pain.
How do you mean?
Addicts play psychological games. We justify and rationalise our behaviour. We're emotionally and often factually dishonest. We deceive, distort, divert and delude. We evade and deny simple truths.
Oh, gosh, that's a mouthful. Anything else?
Lots more. We blame our childhood upbringing and our present social or professional circumstances for all our problems.
Any more?
Oh yes, plenty more. We channel our energy and resources into irrational and destructive behaviour.
But why, for heaven's sake?
Because we're addicts. That's what addicts do by nature.
You're insane.
Yes.
Huh?
Yes. In this respect, I'm insane. I do things that damage me and other people, and I don't see that I'm doing them.
Why don't you just stop?
Because I'm made that way, possibly genetically, and I have to learn how to counter that drive.
How?
Addictive substances and processes make me feel good artificially, but I've learned how to survive without them when things don't go the way I want.
But why did you feel bad in the first place?
Oh, I can blame all sorts of people, places and things for my feelings, and for the behaviour they drive me towards.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
It wouldn't if you're not an addict, but it makes perfectly sense to me and to any other addict.
But putting you all into a group together would be disastrous.
It can be catastrophic when the person running the group isn't an addict.
This is getting worse and worse.
It gets better and better. You can't bullshit a bullshitter. You won't get any of that self-pitying and blaming crap past me nowadays. I've heard it all before, and done most of it myself.
Then you're the last person who should be running a group.
Well, maybe. But other addicts trust me. They know that I'm not going to point the finger at them, blaming them and shaming them for being like me.
But other people in a group therapy session might be uncomfortable working alongside addicts.
It often happens that the strongest critics of addicts of any kind are people who don't want to face up to their own addictive nature. Or they may be angry with an addict in their family, or in their community, or at work.
But addicts would benefit from hearing those concerns and criticisms.
They hear them all the time, but it doesn't change their behaviour.
So, what does turn them around?
Being in a group only with other addicts of any kind. They will listen to other addicts. Putting them in a mixed group of people with other mental health problems, such as schizophrenia or hypomania, won't help anyone.
But surely being with other addicts would make them worse.
Or better.
Huh?
Addicts can learn from each other in both directions, to get worse or get better. In a group therapy session only with other addicts, they learn from each other how to get better.
How?
They can see each other's denial, and they confront each other's justifications and rationalizations, and all the other psychological games.
So you just sit there and do nothing?
Well, I suppose my job is to guide the traffic, to keep the group moving constructively.
How do you do that?
By not looking at the person who's speaking. I watch the rest of the group, so that I know where to go next.
How do you mean?
I can see from someone's body language when he or she agrees or disagrees, or is interested or bored, or angry or upset, or anything. Then I can bring that person in by name or by indicating in some other way. In this way, I can keep the group moving even when I say very little.
Can they run their own group without needing you at all?
Analytical psychotherapy groups work on that principle and tend to descend into heavy silences. In some way, patients are meant to develop deep and meaningful, significant insights into themselves. It may work for some people, but I tried it for 6 months and it didn't work for me.
Why not?
It was too analytical. There was too much headology, as Terry Pratchett calls it. I find the same flaw in cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a mind game.
Well, surely addicts need to see where their thoughts and beliefs are mistaken.
That's true, but we act on our feelings, and they're all over the place, which is why we get into so many difficulties.
Then grow up, get off the pity pot, sort yourself out, get a job, get on with life.
I fully agree. That's exactly what I say. But there's a lot more that I have to say and do, or better still, other addicts in the group can say and do, before new addicts in the group will be able to take those actions.
But how can the group know more than you know as a professional?
I may know more than any of them individually, but put together they know more than I do, about lots of things.
But they wouldn't know how to guide each other sensibly. There'd be anarchy and mayhem.
I suppose the one thing I do know better than all of them is how to get clean and sober and stay clean and sober, and happy, creative and enthusiastic in the long term.
But there must be more to running a group than simply being a bouncy ball.
Yes, there is. I've done a huge amount of training all over the world, and I've watched other people run groups in all sorts of ways, and I've learned from them.
So what else have you learned, and how?
Mostly, I learn by making repeated mistakes. I try something out, and if it doesn't work, I try something else.
So, what are you finished up with?
I find that my own total abstinence from all mood-altering substances is essential to enable me to do this work. I have to be an emotionally empty vessel, able to resonate, so that I can sense the feelings of other people.
Why is that?
Because addicts have a feeling illness, not a disorder of thought process, even though we can have what AA calls stinking thinking.
What's the difference?
We think clearly enough, but in some of our thoughts we're completely misguided. We may convince ourselves of something that simply isn't true.
Such as?
Basically, addicts of any kind are determined to prove that we don't have problems with addictive substances and processes, when everyone else can see that we obviously do.
Well, that is pretty devastating. So, how can you say that addicts think clearly enough?
Our reasoning processes are clear, but they're directed towards false goals. Denial, not seeing ourselves as we really are, is our basic psychopathology.
Well, if addicts can't think straight in that way, it surely means they don't think clearly enough.
Yes, that's the catch. And it's the whole purpose of group therapy. Through our denial, like a personal fog, we don't see ourselves clearly. But we can still see other people and their denial, their personal fogs.
How does that help?
By seeing the denial of other addicts and recognizing that we're like them, we can deduce that we must have similar denial. We then come to see our own justifications and rationalizations.
Can't individual counsellors, if they're addicts themselves, show all that to other addicts?
Yes, they can. But it's less convincing than when a whole room full of other addicts all say the same thing.
So what else happens in a group that is less likely to happen in a one-to-one session?
A group is more likely to be able to draw the stings of isolation, secrecy, and arrogance.
That's a tall order.
Yes, it is. But remember the Native American saying, "A single twig breaks easily, but a bundle of twigs is strong."
So how do you achieve that?
By getting the group to do the work. The instrument of change is the group itself, not the counsellor running it.
How do you mean?
A successfully functioning group is not a series of one-to-one sessions done in a group setting. After all, the whole purpose of 12-step treatment is to prepare people for commitment to the anonymous fellowships. The group, as a bundle, has a combined power and insight of its own.
So how do you get that to work?
Trainee counsellors have to learn how to make the group work, how to get everyone involved and interacting. That's the real skill of a group therapist. If the counsellor is doing all the work, it isn't group therapy.
So what is it?
Self-indulgence on the part of the counsellor. For that reason, trainees should learn their basic skills in group before they learn one-to-one skills.
So what's the secret?
The counsellor has to stay unpredictable. Vary the content. Vary the pace. Vary the focus. Vary the emotional intensity.
Wow, all that?
Yes, and a lot more. This is why I don't let trainee counsellors contribute to the group in their first 3 months.
That's very severe. But precisely why not?
They would get too tied up in the content and fail to observe the process. They get stuck looking at the speaker rather than seeing how what is being said affects other members of the group.
What else do they have to learn?
Well, some skills, such as knowing how to be enthusiastic and love people in all their individual quirkiness, are possibly innate. If counsellors haven't got those skills, they should do something else.
Oh.
Other skills have to be learned, such as dealing with difficult issues straight away, rather than letting them fester throughout the group session. Otherwise, a few people, the troublemakers, can dominate the whole group.
And how do you prevent that?
By learning how to interrupt politely, not by saying something myself, but by calling the name of one of the other members of the group. That's what keeps the whole group process moving along.
Why is that so vital?
Because time is limited, and I have to get everybody involved. Everyone has to feel part of the group by contributing something.
But that must be very challenging in a large group of 20 or more people.
Yes, it is. That's why I often use psychodrama techniques, getting people on their feet and actively involved in playing roles for each other.
Why is that so important?
It brings the whole group to life. Otherwise, as Jack Nicholson said to a morose group in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, this is as good as it gets.